Today I want to take a little time to do a video that I've kind of done before, and I want to deal with the question of, is a custom 1911 actually worth it over a production 1911? And while I'm doing this video here, I'm going to add one extra little wrinkle that I've never added to the video before. I'm actually going to compare my one and only custom 1911 that I've never had before to what I consider to be my top production 1911. This is going to be my Dan Wesson Specialist. I consider Dan Wesson to be the top of the line production-wise as far as production 1911s or assembly line 1911s are concerned. And this is my new Nighthawk Trooper, which is a custom gun. One gunsmith builds the entire gun. So I'm going to compare them today and try to answer the question, is a custom 1911 really worth it? Okay, just so people know where we're at cost-wise here, this Dan Wesson, the Specialist, runs about $2,000. That's the cost of what I consider to be one of the top production 1911s. This custom Nighthawk here runs about $3,000. That's a 50% price increase over the Dan Wesson. But it's actually kind of an entry-level custom 1911. But you can get a lot of custom 1911s in that price range. Nighthawk tends to be a little pricier than some of the other custom 1911s, and we'll determine whether that's worth it or not here in a little bit. But that lets you know what we're talking price-wise here. $2,000 versus $3,000. Is it worth it for that extra $1,000 to get the custom 1911? Well, let's see if we can answer that question today. Now, in reality, the answer to that question isn't so clear-cut. There's different ways you got to look at things, and there's different things you have to look at. But first, let's break it down real quick into a couple little parts here. I think there's three real parts you have to look at. The first one is self-defense. Will the extra $1,000 you spend on this gun make it a better gun for self-defense than this gun? And the answer to that is an equivocal no, it will not. Some people might disagree with me. They might say, well, but it gets a tighter group and it's got a little bit more responsive trigger. And yes, I will say it does. But is it enough of a difference to make a difference when it comes to self-defense? And I do not think it is. I just can't imagine how anyone could think it is. When it comes to group sizes out of both these guns out of a rest, you're not going to see much of a difference, probably 1/8 of an inch. And when it comes to shooting it offhand, you're probably not going to see any difference at all. So accuracy-wise, they're both going to hit your target if you're shooting at a human-sized target from pretty much any distance that you can still see that human-sized target. Now, I will give them that the trigger on the Nighthawk is a little better than the trigger on the Dan Wesson. Both are excellent, but this one is closer to perfect. The Nighthawk trigger is just a little bit crisper and a little bit quicker. It resets a little bit better. It's just an overall better trigger. But if we were rating them on a scale from 1 to 10, this would be like a 9.6 and this would be like a 9.8. Really not much of a difference when you look at it. So would that little bit of a difference make a difference when it comes to self-defense? I don't think it would. I can't even imagine that it would. I couldn't find a real-world example that would ever make anyone think that it could. I'm just going to have to say that when it comes to self-defense, it's just not worth it to buy a custom 1911. That extra $1,000 isn't going to get you the ability to shoot around corners. It isn't going to make you a better shot. It isn't going to somehow magically direct the bullet onto target or, warn you when danger's coming. So when it comes to self-defense, like I said, I'm going to have to say that the custom 1911s are definitely not worth it. But self-defense isn't the only aspect of owning a gun. Like I said, I want to deal with three aspects here today. The second aspect would be sporting use. Would it be worth it to buy the custom 1911 if you want to shoot competition or if you just like to test yourself, push yourself to be the best you could be? Well then, yes, I'm going to say it would be worth it. When you're shooting for points, that 1/8 of an inch tighter group would definitely be worth it. When you're shooting for speed, that little tiny difference in the trigger would definitely be worth it. If you're just competing for fun or just going to the range for fun, well, then the Dan Wesson is definitely going to be just as good for you. So would a Kimber or a Rock Island or whatever. You're just going to be out there having fun. They're all going to be able to do that. They're all going to be able to perform well. So you wouldn't need the custom 1911. But if you're someone who's actually out there wanting to win, then that little bit smaller group is going to make a difference when you're shooting for points. That little bit faster trigger is going to make a difference when you're shooting for time. Or if you're just at the range and you want to get the tightest group you've ever got, you want to be the best you can be, those tiny little differences are going to matter. So in that case, buying a custom 1911 would definitely be worth it. So at this point, you might say, okay, if I'm a competition shooter or I'm a perfectionist, well, then it's worth it to get a custom 1911. If I'm not, I'm just somebody who wants to defend myself and my family, then it's not worth it. So that was a real easy answer to the question. But there's actually a third factor that comes into effect here that actually muddies it up a little bit, and that is pride of ownership. Now, this is where all the wannabe Rambos will jump in and go, pride of ownership doesn't matter when it comes to a gun, blah, blah, blah. Of course it does. It matters when it comes to anything that's a high-quality item. So pride of ownership does make a difference. And that's where the differences between these two guns become more apparent. And that's why I want to show you the differences between these actual two guns. First, let's look at the slide to frame fitment. This Dan Wesson here, like I said, is probably the best production gun on the market, and that slide to frame fitment there, that is amazing. This is top notch. This is as good as any custom gun in my opinion, but there is a place where it starts to fall down. As you follow your finger down towards the frame of the gun, you can really feel a difference right there. It's really clear that these two pieces weren't made in concert with each other. They weren't made to go together. So there's a little bit of difference in how this folds back and how this kicks out. So there's a tiny variance there. It's not anything that's going to make a difference when you're shooting the gun, but you can definitely tell it's there. When you look at slide to frame fitment on the Nighthawk here, there's no variance. It's every bit as tight as the Dan Wesson, maybe a tiny bit tighter, and there is no variance at all. This slide was clearly made to go with this frame. They were born to be together, and it shows in that fitment there. There is nothing there. You can't feel any seam whatsoever. That is a little feature that makes this gun just a little bit better when it comes to build quality. Another thing to look at here are the parts, like the ejector right here and the extractor right here. When you run your finger along these, you definitely feel difference. This sets in quite a bit. This sticks out a little bit. These parts were just pulled out of a bin, a production bin, and put together with this gun. They were hand assembled, but they weren't made for each other, so there are slight variances here. When it comes to the Nighthawk here, even the parts like the ejector and the extractor, you can run your finger all the way down and all the way out the beaver tail. You won't feel a single seam. This is attention to detail. These are parts that were made specifically for each other, put together by one gunsmith from beginning to end, from billets they chose, and it really shows. That makes a big difference when it comes to pride of ownership. You can also see similar differences when you look at the front of the gun. When you look at the muzzle here, you can see this is very well done. I'm going to say this is top notch as far as production quality guns are concerned, but there are minor differences. If you look at the bushing here and the plug, they don't line up perfectly. They don't look like they were made for one another. There's like a micron difference in thickness. When you look at how the barrel hits the bushing here, there's a little difference here. They make them stick out a little bit. They don't do that because they think it looks better. They do that because it makes it easier to fit the pieces together. If there's going to be a slight difference anyway, you might as well make it a slightly bigger difference so it looks like it's on purpose. So although it's extremely well done, it's definitely not perfect. When you look at the front of the Nighthawk, it's not made in a way to hide small imperfections. It's done in a way to look perfect. It all fits together very well. You can't even feel a seam here. The barrel is flush in the bushing with no real misalignments whatsoever. It's reverse crowned in there. This right here is just manufacturing perfection right here. And it's because they make their pieces not to cover up small imperfections, but they make them to be as tight as possible. And if there is a small imperfection, they take care of it when they're putting the gun together, because this gun, like I said, is put together from pieces that are made to go together. And if they don't go together quite right, a professional makes them go together perfectly. And that's why the front end of this gun is pretty much perfect. Another thing you can look at is like the stippling on the front of the grip here, the texture put on the front of the grip. When this frame was milled out, they left a raised area right here, and another machine came through and just put cuts into it to make this. If they fucked it up, they could always just file it off and they'd have a flat front of the gun. But this right here is actually raised. It's not flush with the gun. It's probably the best way you could do it production-wise, but it's still not the best way you can do it. When you look at the same feature on the Nighthawk here, it's cut into the frame. It isn't a raised up area here. It's actually cut into the frame. This has a much more hand-done quality look to it. It feels better, it looks better, and it is better. So this right here is another difference between the top-notch production gun and a hand-done gun. Another thing you can look at are like edges right here. Now, I will say that Dan Wesson does a great job of finishing their frames, taking down the sharp edges and everything, but there's still little places that are sharp, like right here on this gun. Not a bad thing, it's just a way they cut a little bit of the cost off by not having to take care of every edge. You aren't going to find an edge like that anywhere on this gun. Every edge is taken care of. There's not a sharp spot on this gun anywhere you can find. That's an extra attention to detail. That takes time, that takes money, and in my opinion, that's actually worth it. That is awesome. Now, the triggers on these two guns are pretty much identical. There's a small difference, but like I said, it's a small difference. I couldn't possibly show you that difference on camera here, but I will show you some differences in the controls, like the safety. The safety on the Dan Wesson is really well made. It's really thick, very beefy. I like them a lot, but they're a little bit clunky. They're not like horribly clunky. They don't feel loose or wiggly or anything like that, but they're a little stiff. They feel a little heavy when you go to move them. The Dan Wesson is smoother, it's cleaner, it doesn't feel as clicky or as clunky. Like I said, it's not rattly or anything either, but it is just like it's perfectly put together. And like I said, this gun is made every part for every other part, so it makes sense that that works a little bit better. Now, one of the biggest differences in the controls is the grip safety. This grip safety is a little bit stiffer, and if I click it here, and I'm just tapping on it, you can hear the actual workings. It's a little bit like, I would say, I don't know, clunky maybe, but you know, it's not bad, and you're definitely not going to really notice it when you're shooting the gun, but that is something about the gun right there. All right, now I'm using the exact same pressure on this one, and you notice it doesn't travel as far, it's not as clunky, it's just much smoother. It works so much easier. You don't even notice it when you're grabbing the gun. It's still deliberate, but it's super smooth, it's super clean. So this right here is a major difference in my opinion. I really like the way the grip safeties on the Nighthawk are compared to the production Dan Wesson. So, when it comes down to which one of these is actually a better made gun, this gun is definitely better made. Now, does that make a difference in self-defense? I don't think it would. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say, no, it won't. Now, will it make a difference when it comes to competition? Well, definitely yes. This gun would definitely be worth it for competition. Those two things are pretty clear cut, but that's not the only thing you make your decision on. Like I said, there's also that pride of ownership and wanting to have the best tool you can possibly have or be the best shooter you can possibly be. And when it comes down to that, it would definitely be worth it to get the Nighthawk. Most people who commute to work every day could get to work just as quickly, just as easily, just as reliably, have the same music, etc., driving a Ford Focus to work every day as they could driving like a Mustang. But a lot of people will choose to get the Mustang, not the Ford Focus, simply because they like the Mustang better. There's a little bit more pride of ownership, there's a little bit more attention to detail, there's a little bit more extra to the car. And the same way that Mustang is going to cost way more than that Focus, the Nighthawk's going to cost a little more than the Specialist. And in fact, it's not a little more, it's quite a bit more, 50% more. So to answer that question of, is it worth it, you have to know what kind of person you are and what you're looking for. If you just want basic self-defense, no, get the Dan Wesson, get a Kimber, get a Smith & Wesson, etc. If you want to be the best shooter you can be, you want to win competitions, get a custom 1911 like the Nighthawk. Or if you're just someone like me that wants to defend yourself and your family, but you still want to have something that you enjoy carrying every day, you just like being next to it, you think this is the best one of these I could possibly have, well then in that case, it's worth it to spend a little extra money because we carry these things with us all day long. So I spend more time with my gun than I do with any member of my family. So I want to like my gun as much as possible. So to me, a custom 1911 is definitely worth it. As for whether or not it's worth it for you, well, that's up to you. You have to decide what's important to you. Do you want the best gun you can get, or do you want just basic protection? Do you want something that you take great pride in, or do you not care at all what your gun looks like, what your gun feels like, etc.? Are you the kind of person that drives a Ford Focus to work, or are you the kind of person that drives a Mustang to work?